Hello and welcome back to part 5 of the Tony Drayton interview, the Tony Drayton story. Um, and if you've missed the first 4, well, there's all sorts that you should go and check on YouTube, really, including kind of growing up in Scotland, punk rock, Sex Pistols, Malcolm McLaren, Ripped and Torn, then later punk rock, Killy Pet Puppy, Crass, Genesis P Origin, Throbbing Gristle, I suppose, and so on. And then after all that, Tony goes off to Europe to be a clown, runs away to join the circus, almost, you might say. And then we do all that in previous ones. And where we're up to in the story is 1986, where you have just come back to England in 1986 to get a driving license from the travelling circus adventure. So, well, firstly, I should say hello and welcome, Tony.
Hello, Tony. I was very excited. It sounds like a very interesting story. I'll have to go back and listen to
Well,
it.
yeah, you should meet the guy sometime. He's quite fascinating. Yeah, okay. So I'll put it over to you, I guess. So you come back to London, and what happens next?
Right, we came back. It was about May 1986. We'd left the circus troupe down there in the south of France in a bit of a hiatus, as we'd done a quite long tour around Spain. This is the traveling hippie circus and hippie buses and stuff. Didn't have a big top. We worked on the street, and we were planning to go in further north, and it was starting to get more legal. Spain, Gibraltar, Portugal in those days was quite laissez-faire about MOTs and driving licenses and insurance and things like that. There wasn't that many vehicles around. But we knew when we came up into France, and we had planned to go all the way up to Denmark for some crazy reason. We knew we'd be crossing borders that would want to see certificates. And so I thought, yeah, great, I'll go to London and I'll get myself a driving license and I'll come back. See you in a couple of weeks, guys. And came back, Cravat came back with us. A couple of others came back to London as well. And then we kind of think, well, where do we stay? We went to Black Sheep Housing Co-op, which we'd helped set up before we'd gone off. And they were full. There was no space there. There's no space at the inn. And they said, go to Hackney. There's some squats in Hackney. We went to the Brown Road, which is a kind of squatted street in Hackney. No space at the inn, but they said, go around the corner to Albion Drive. There's a women's collective house there on Albion Drive, which is falling apart, which they're all leaving. And inside information here. So we went there. The last girl standing, who was an old puppy writer, collaborator, Nikki. She gave us the key to the house on the way out. And there was me and Cravat moved in there. These 2 other people moved in and they went up north shortly after. And so it was me and Cravat. So we've done, first thing, we've got a house. And we started signing on from there. And thought, well, what do we do? What do you do for money? And we had our skills, our circus skills. So I actually started going down to Covent Garden. We went down together, or I started busking by myself in the end, that Covent Garden, because I knew it was there. And I started making quite a lot of money. Not a lot of money, not just for the big acts there. But I remember I was doing one show at Covent Garden, and I realized I'd made more as a solo act than we were making as a team of 20 people in Spain. I thought this is a bit interesting, and I hadn't really thought about driving lessons. I hadn't really thought I needed to get money to drive. So, I've got to get these driving lessons to get the driving license, and I kept putting it off. The people in Spain, I got word. So I remember I phoned them down in Spain, or in France, sorry, or someone phoned someone in Brown Road. I'm not sure how this happened because there's no mobile phones in those days. But I got wind that my bus was now in Toulouse, in a car park in Toulouse. And what did I want to do with it? And someone on Brown Road who had a small vehicle, small van, they were interested in buying it, had a picture of it. And they went down to Toulouse to buy it, which just sounds incredible. And they were going to drive it back. And they went to Toulouse and it was squatted. They came back from Toulouse with the information. There were 6 people squatting on it. They're taking the engine to pieces. And it wasn't going anywhere. And he wasn't interested in this.
Well, no.
They said they knew me. Well, there we are. And as far as I know, that bus is still in Toulouse. Actually, I don't, because I've seen a picture of it elsewhere now. I've seen a picture of it sort of in a wreck. I think I sent it to you, somewhere in a field somewhere. So I got out of Toulouse and somewhere out there.
So does that change your attitude to going back?
It did. It did. Yeah, no, it was changing anyway. This is. I thought, well, that's what's happened to the rest of the troop, and what's going on. And in the meantime, I was working at Covent Garden, started working almost on a daily basis, and something else happened then at Covent Garden that blew going back to the circus out of the water. Is I was doing one of my shows, and someone came up to me afterwards and said, "Would you be interested in working for the premiere of the Phantom of the Opera around the corner, a couple of streets away? So it's going to have the premiere in a few nights. We want to have you to do some fire eating and juggling outside." Sounds a bit strange. They said, "We'll give you 80 quid. I'm in." I said, 80 quid, I'm there. And I went to do this show, and it said, they gave me this little contract, handwritten contract thing, and on it was, "You'll work until the appearance of Her Highness Lady Prince of Wales, Lady Di Prince of Wales arrives." So that sounds pretty good. So I did. I went there and worked, and surprisingly, other people from Covent Garden were all there doing stuff outside, and they sort of closed the street, and there's lots of people gathered outside, and we were sort of entertaining more the crowds outside than anyone else. So we were just kind of just filling in for them, or giving them something to do until, because when Di arrived, the car came down. Just to say, the street was empty of other cars. Her car came down with police escorts, and everyone was cheering. It was going crazy. And then we stopped, and the point of the outcome of this was I was I got into this world that other people from Covent Garden were doing this, and they said, "Oh yeah, we do loads of these sort of events, sort of private. It's called corporate entertainment." And I said, "Well, fantastic. How'd you get this?" And he told me some agents' numbers, and I started phoning up. And I moved that night. I moved out of the street entertainment. I still went to Covent Garden, but the world of corporate entertainment opened up for me. And on that night, when Di showed up, she came out of her car. One of the performers said, "Lads, form a line, lads, form a line, lads." We all rushed, and we formed a line between her car and the door she was going to go into. And we all stood there, and the first person was this guy. He put his hand out, and she shook it. She shook his hand, and then we all did this. She shook all our hands. She had no idea who we were. She shook all our hands. So my very first corporate entertainment thing was I touched the hand of Lady Di.
That's great. And what was your impression of it?
Smiling at all of us and all that, really happy, good stuff. This is a long way from busking in Spain.
Yeah. Did it feel different doing that kind of entertainment?
Yes, it did. I thought I loved it. I went straight into it like a duck to water. There's another thing happens. It wasn't just that sort of stuff, because this is the kind of new circus stuff we were doing out in Spain. Was this kind of new circusy stuff? It had a whole new vibe, which we'd brought back from Spain. So I had this whole energy which no one else had in these entertainment. So I was quite in demand. Everyone was a bit more laid back, or straight stuff, and I was in this kind of new circusy mode. But that was kind of coming in. This new circus thing was around, was buzzing around. And another time I was busking at Covent Garden, and this guy came up, a bit like the Lady Di thing. This guy came up and said, "Do you want to work at our club?" And it was Michael Dog, and it was Club Dog, which started up in Worcester, a very experimental, some ways a kind of throwback to kind of hippie 60s psychedelia clubs. Lots of psychedelia type bands, but it was a bit silly and a bit techno, a bit experimental. So I started, as well as doing these corporate gigs, I was also doing Club Dog once a week, and I was doing Covent Garden in the middle, so I was quite balanced out of all this stuff. And it, as I say, in amongst all this world, going back to Spain was then forgotten. So I never contacted them again. And that was kind of 1986, and music. And I had no idea what's happening in music at this point. I'd completely cut off from anarcho-punk or punk. I think occasionally a band would come up, like Tronics. For some reason, I liked the Tronics. They'd come into my orbit. But I was listening to a lot of country music at the time, and I was still thinking about writing. Amazingly, in amongst all this performing, I was thinking about writing, and actually wanted to write about Jim Reeves, because I loved Jim Reeves' records. I couldn't find anything out about him, so I thought, there's no Jim Reeves book. Why don't I write the Jim Reeves book? And actually wrote to Jim Reeves' widow, wrote to Mary, to say, can I do Jim's autobiography? Or can I do his biography? And she wrote back saying, can I have samples of 2 of your previous works? I didn't think we're sending a copy of Ripped and Torn and Kill Your Pet Puppy might not have cut it.
Yeah.
So that ended there. So that's my kind of writing side of stuff. It was still bubbling away. I thought, I I want to write, but it wasn't. There's no space for it. And I think we talk about the spirit, don't we? We're going about the spirit. This in these interviews. What was really driving me? What was actually driving this? Because it wasn't just financial. I think doing the corporate stuff was very eye-opening, because you're seeing a lot of very wealthy areas going to wealth mansions. A lot of places where, like, a company would hire a mansion or a country house and have a kind of fun day for their employees, or an award ceremony. So you'd be going to these places you'd never have access to otherwise, and seeing some very rich people. And also, it became a kind of core of the performers doing this stuff, the corporate circus performers doing this stuff. We almost knew who, we kind of knew each other, we knew where we were going to be. So it was a kind of also a rolling kind of party for us. We kind of like meet up all the time. So I took to that like a duck to water, that I kind of felt this is much more me than standing on the street performing. I wasted all my years. This is where I've got to be. But then I never really took it that seriously, which is I think some agent said to me, if you put a proper show together, get some proper props. Because I was still living in squats, I didn't have this mentality of moving to a proper, doing things properly. But agents saying, if you put a show together, you could really be we could sell you as a show and put you on stage, rather than just kind of doing what you're doing. But that never came through. But in amongst this, I said about the Spain, actually, it was still on my mind. Maybe not the circus I'd left, but the actual Barcelona and stuff, the actual living in Spain. Because I went and bought a bus. I'd done a steam fair somewhere in Dorset, performing, actually with a circus hired me to do a three-day circus. And I was in there performing at the circus. And whilst there, I saw a bus for sale, a very small bus, for £500. And I went back about a month later and I bought it. It would gone up to 550. So where's that £50? I said, it's a special offer at the fair. Now it's gone back to its normal price. It's still be coming.
Yeah.
Anyway, I bought this bus. It still had all the seats and everything in, and I stripped it all out, made it a live-in bus, and I went back down. This is 1987. So it's kind of funny, because I was talking about the corporate stuff. I loved all the corporate stuff, but there was obviously something else was drawing me. There was a light, and I bought the bus, drove very, very quickly, just all the way down to. Because that's the point I should explain as well. I got my driving license. I did get my driving. At that point, so I'd got the driving license. This is my first car. There's this, or the second one, because I had the bus that I'd already left. My first legal car was this bus, and so I drove it all the way down to Barcelona, and I was hearing stories from people coming back up to the south. It wasn't like it was when I left, even just a couple of years later. So in places we'd gone to that were great, Cartagena, the place by Portugal, outside Gibraltar, where everyone used to park up. There's still all these places are gone. They're sort of really clamping down on hippie travelers and mobile travelers now. So I was lucky enough. I just caught the end of the golden era. I think we were talking about last time, when after Franco died, there was a whole wave of people moved into Spain. It was barren. It was really open to alternative ideas. Now they're clamping down. And so I was hearing this stuff, and I was working in Barcelona. I thought, well, what do I do? I don't want to go down again. There's a few people parked up around us, but they wasn't really like a tight troop like it was before. Like we went through the Esparraguera, went to the circus festival and left with people. I knew we were going to meet people. And so I came back. I drove back quite quickly, and I through France and everything. And I came back, and I kind of thought, what was that about? I came back, and I think I sold the bus. Sold the bus shortly after that. A few months later, I sold the bus. Then that squat, Albion Drive, was then repossessed. So everything seemed to happen. I came back with the bus, thinking, well, that was an adventure. But suddenly everything seemed to be changing. Then I came back. the squat was going, and then I thought, I don't need this bus. I sold the bus. I moved around the corner to another squat on Queensbridge Road, and no, I've missed it. I've written this all down, and I've missed a bit again. So I came back, and then we still had the summer of 87, 88, summer of 88. I went and joined a little mini circus with a top, about 5 of us with a big top.
Okay.
We toured around the southern England, southeast England, and for a few months. I'm not sure how long we did it for. Then, because at this point, me and Cravat had an on-off relationship, and when I went off with the bus, she just came down and joined us. She started driving down, joining up with us. She never actually performed in the top, but she was kind of around, so she sort of liked that whole idea, which added to the vibe, if you like, because there's kind of these Irish circus performers and me, and so she came down and gave more, and there's an English ringmaster to give it more of a balance. So yeah, she came down, but then we both, it sort of broke up. It wasn't doing very well. It wasn't a great tour. It wasn't not for the performances, I'll say, but just that whole idea of taking a small circus into a small town was something that's like that idea had gone by then, really.
All right.
People there's too suspicious of us.
This is the time of Acid House, isn't it? The raves. Did you have any?
They had the Peace Convoy. It's like the Peace Convoy and stuff like that. You had Stonehenge, the Bean Feast thing, 85, and there's Peace Convoys going around. And even though we didn't look like that, even though I had my bus with them, but most of the vehicles were more orthodox. There's still some kind of suspicion. Who are they? I remember Mark Mobb saying this when he'd joined another circus, and they'd gone. He said every time they got somewhere, the kids would all come running up trying to buy drugs off them, saying, "Are you the Peace Convoy? Are you the Peace Convoy?" Even though they said, as far as they knew, they looked nothing like the Peace Convoy.
Yeah.
So we had a bit of that as well. So that's we had that thing, that the bus, the Santi, and that's a story in a book in itself, that tour. But we came back to Albion Drive, and then that's when it started to fall apart. I think, well, what are we going to do? I think maybe I did that too. I went with that circus just because I had the bus. So what do I do with this bus? Or I can do this. There's no point sitting in London if I've got this. And so when I came back to London, I thought, well, I've done that. Now let's get rid of the bus. And then I moved to this Queensbridge Road, where I started to get a bit more serious now, a bit more serious into the performance. And New Circus is really building up now, about 88, 89. It was really being taken on board. And so, and that itself was making lots of circus workshops, and I became doing lots of circus workshops, became a big thing rather than doing a show, which I adapted to. And then I got asked if I wanted to go to Pakistan, to Karachi, with a show. And it was one of the agents who used to book me for the corporate places. And it's about April 89, about April 89 this happened. And I think you probably asked a lot of people, and people didn't want to go because they were making too much money. It was the corporate world. You're doing lots of gigs every night, or lots of gigs on a nightly basis. Sometimes you do 2 or 3 gigs a day. Especially around Christmas time, you can try and get 3 in. It's madness. But then I said, "Oh, I'll go to Pakistan. Where is it?" I thought it was in India. I think it's in Karachi. I didn't know my atlas very well.
Right.
And I was told Karachi, and I thought Karachi was in India, or Pakistan. I thought Pakistan was part of India.
Were you nervous about? It's a long way away. It's a different culture, and you'd been around Europe and so on, but culturally, this is another further leap, isn't it? Was it weird in any kind of way in that respect?
Yeah. As I said, I didn't even know where it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was certainly part of the attraction. To try and I'd like to do traveling. I was traveling around, Europe and stuff. And I thought, this is another jump. And what they said to us when I went to this interview with the guy, the organizer of the event, he said, we'll start off in Karachi, then we're going to go to Lahore, then from Lahore we're going to go another place, Islamabad, and then back to Karachi, like 3 months, 4 months each place. And I thought, this sounds fantastic. It's the rest of your life. And I said, I also had a vision of a Tibetan Ukrainian mountain troop who we talked about before. The name Tibetan Ukrainian mountain troop. I thought, this is great. This is like Pakistan. This is like them actually going out into the wilds, where they kind of dream of. Their name sort of was dreamt up from. And so actually, when I was in Karachi, I kept sending postcards of buses, because they had very ornate buses in Karachi. They really did the normal bus you'd catch, the number 19, is decorated beyond any hippie bus concept. And I did have pictures of those up in the mountains, which are on sale. And so I took loads of these postcards and sent them all back down to Brown Road to people, the ex-Tibetans.
Right.
Shoving off. Here I am. Here's my bus on the Pakistan-Chinese border. But yes, it was that excitement, that unknown is what drew me out there. I really wanted to go. Again, what's the alternative? I'm living in a squat in Hackney, going off doing corporate gigs, or why not see what's going to happen out there?
Yeah.
There was a bit of a misunderstanding that the agent had been told it's a non-animal circus, and by that, for us in the West or London, that meant a new circus. I said, oh yeah, Tony's is great for that new circus. Got there, and what they meant was non-animal, because it was cheaper for them.
Right.
It was an orthodox circus, but it wasn't in a big top. It was on a stage, on a cabaret stage, and it's meant like an ordinary circus. So I was expecting kind of us to create some acts and stuff. They do like an chaos type theme, and all the acts would just come together and rehearse a basic storyline. And no, it's nothing like that. Every act is self-contained. There are these Chinese balancers, an Iranian balancer. There's a magician from Birmingham who came from Pakistan, Shahid Malik. He kind of basically helped organize all this stuff. And he had a very strong show. He was the main show. He had two major things. There's an American clown, Spunky the Clown.
Okay.
Yeah, very nice. And a dancer. There's a dancer. This came from Britain as well. I think there might be some more in the act, but I think that's the main people. And I was trying to work out the chronology of this, and I got sidetracked into all the songs I played in this. I'll just tell you a little bit about when I got there, and they said bring some music. Okay, so I Hoots Mon, Lord Rockingham's 11, Hoots Mon.
Yes.
And I had that as a single, and I had it on a little dansette player, and I held a tape recorder over the speaker of the dansette and recorded Hoots Mon. And I did the same for Red River Rock, Johnny and the Hurricanes. And then I did the same for Ceremony, New Order's Ceremony. Recorded. Right. These were my 3 songs I was going to use. And I got out there. I decided to say Shahid Malik had stuff, his songs are recorded in a studio. They're studio quality recordings. And so the Chinese acrobats, their music was quality, recorded properly. The Iranian acrobat, his stuff, he'd been working for years, and these shows, his music was properly recorded. And mine was this growling, bassy, growl, hiss, horror. And the guys on the mixing desk said they had to really muck around with it to try and get some sound out of it. It sounded so incredible, and it used to knock the place dead. So when I'd come on, and the Hoots Mon was my opening song, and I'd come on with my juggling balls walking on above my head, and everyone's just like clapping as Hoots Mon started. The place would erupt. The other acts would be looking at, what's going on? What's going on? This is absolute riot. And I was walking around banging my juggling balls together. Just walk around the stage doing this. I daren't start juggling. I daren't start this. You can't beat this.
Yeah.
I'll top this opening. But when it goes to the first speech, Hoots Mon, there's a moose, loose, about this hoose. Goes to that bit, and then I think I've got to start juggling. But they'd roar with that one, Hoots Mon, yay! And then I start juggling, and they'd cheer with the juggling. It was very simple. I said I just do simple juggling stuff. Didn't try and do anything fancy, because they were just loving it. They just went with this music. So I could do all these smiles and kicks and stuff. And I think the people, the organisers, were expecting a big flashy juggler. But I was doing this. What I was giving them was, this is real new circus. Like, this is like some street. This is a streets, sus. A street show. This is what you do in a street show. You wouldn't really do much. You just go around getting the crowd going. They'd never seen anything like it. And this song, they hated the organisers hated the fact that they wanted to keep wanting to have proper circus music. And they said, no, look at the crowds. Look at the crowds.
You must have felt a bit like a rock star, I guess, with that kind of reaction.
It was outrageous. It was outrageous. And we were working outdoors. It's a cabaret stage. We actually worked outdoors. It's so hot in Karachi. We'd do shows like 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock, something like that at night. We'd finish at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's so hot. And so that's just to add to the surrealness. Then we'd eat backstage. They'd make this big kind of banquet come in, and we all eat food. And we had chauffeur-driven cars that would be chauffeur-driven back to our hotels. And wild stuff. And just to add to the madness, in the next morning you'd read the National of your breakfast. You had a chili omelette breakfast, chili omelette and black coffee breakfast. You read the copy of the National, and there'd be like a picture of the street you're driven down the night before with a bus burned out on it, because there was riots and stuff. There was all whole unrest everywhere. Benazir Bhutto had just got in. Pakistan's Popular Pakistan, the PPP had just got in after years of dictatorship, and they'd come there. This is why we were there. She'd opened it to the west, opened up Pakistan to the west, and some people didn't like it. There's this reaction to this Western decadence. We were the Western decadence, and
it must account for the kind of reception you were getting, I guess, as well.
The people who came obviously supported Western decadence.
Yeah, yeah.
So it wasn't like we went. The one day we had a show where we all said the protesters are going to attack the show. They had word that the protesters were going to attack the show, and to get around it, they were going to do a show for the protesters, a free show for the protesters, to show them what we did. Because this guy said, we spoke to him and said, you don't know what we do. You don't know what's going on there. So why don't you come and see first? See for yourselves. And I said, oh, can we do this for them? No charge. I said, they're fine, fantastic. But these are my people. Not sure, no, well, not because it was the right-wing protesters, but this was at 1 o'clock. He said, we'll do the show at 1 o'clock. And then it's so hot. And they put a big canopy over the whole seating area on the stage. It's big, like a big tapestry thing. Like these places, nothing's done bland. It wasn't like a big bland bit of canvas. It's very ornate and a neatly designed thing over us. And packed with these people. We're thinking, what are they going to do? What are they going to be like? And Hootsmon. It was probably the best that's ever gone down. It's going down well. This is like absolutely right. If they had guns, they'd have shot them in the air.
Right. So how long did this go on for then in Pakistan?
Well, so we got to Karachi. The long-term plan was to go all up to Lahore after a few months. So when it started dying down, we were selling out every night, 2 shows at the night, selling out. Then, unfortunately, on the 3rd of June, Ayatollah Khomeini died in Iran, and that put Pakistan in a bit of a pickle. And it was meant to be the PPP, and we've gone the way, so more modernization. But they were still very Muslim based, and they had to recognize this death all over the world, or this part of the world. They had a mourning, and they said we're going to have 30 days of mourning. 30 days of mourning, so nothing, no shows for 30 days. And that was it. They said to us, we can't afford to keep you here for 30 days without any income. So what can we do, guys? That's it. Good night. There's an American wrestling show going on as well in Karachi, and the guy from there had come over, the organizer that had come over to see us a couple of times, and he'd come over and he was saying, I've got to pack up, I've got to tell my wrestlers. It was just like telling 20 wrestlers you've got to go home.
Yeah.
But he said they eat me out of house and home. It's like, what these guys eat, man, what they eat. They eat for breakfast what I eat in a day. I mean, in a day
Right.
they eat what I eat in a week. And that's each of them. And so it wasn't so, so we weren't that. And that guy saying these circus performers eat nothing.
So you must have felt like the rug had been pulled from under your feet a little bit when you bowled back into the UK, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. As I say, there's one thing I loved Karachi. I love the weirdness of it. We did little trips out and everything. These Chinese acrobats who've been all around the East, they hated it. They hated Karachi. They knew more what that world was like. And they said it's the second worst place they've been to. They said
Wow.
Karachi is the second worst place they've had to perform in. They said it was almost like they were sent here as a punishment. And they said, "What's the worst place?" The worst place is Ulaanbaatar. Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, the
Oh,
capital
right.
of Mongolia.
Okay.
I just thought, I want to go to Ulaanbaatar. Take me to Ulaanbaatar, guy. I said, no. But we stayed in a hotel. I shared a room with Spunky. We had a room, and we used to practice juggling. We'd actually worked on a little juggling routine together, which we put into the show. This is the stuff that I thought we'd be doing when I first got there. We'd all be working on acts
Yeah.
together. But we took this little stealing the clubs off each other, which I'd done I devised in Spain. This whole routine I devised in Spain. I've done it with many people, so I could teach him it. We've got a bit more flash with it. I'd throw clubs over my head, like, where have they gone? And he'd turn, maybe in his clown costume. I've been with a fancy costume. For some clubs over the head, and he'd come around juggling them, all very fancy stuff. I'll say the fancy costume they did make me I went there with some new circus style clothing, and they very quickly bought me orthodox circus stuff.
So more jazzy, more
Yes,
sequins
yeah,
and
silver kind of trousers and waistcoat with a shirt with a big ruff on it, and a gold one likewise. A gold. I loved them. That's all dressed to me. It's all just dressing up.
yeah, right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love to dressing up. So that was nice. So that's the thing. The Chinese acrobats used to come into our room, me and Spunky's room, and we'd do whole juggling. All four of us, they could juggle really well, and we'd do a big juggling pattern. This room it became like a circus workshop. Then the Iranian would come in as well, and he'd sort of sit there smoking his opium. We'd smoke a lot of opium there.
Yeah.
That became the drug of choice, and because the Iranian looked like a native, you could go out and buy this stuff quite easily. We'd
Mm.
get back, we'd have the opium in your tea, opium tea. Very
Did
nice.
that have any positive or indeed negative effect on your juggling?
No, it didn't take it that much of it really.
Yeah.
No. But no, so yeah, there didn't have some mind expanding stuff. But no, I mean, we left. So say the plan was when I left Queensbridge Road, I was thinking I never, then it could be I'm never coming back here. The only time I'll come back here is to get the rest of my stuff or get clear out because I'll be living in Pakistan the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah.
That's my dream. And so the fact that it suddenly ended like that, and as you say, I was back. When we came back, there was a tube strike, and the dancer, this dancer, her parents were picking her up, and she lived somewhere, Buckinghamshire or somewhere. And so they drove to Heathrow and picked her up. And they said, "We'll give you a lift back." And I'm a bit embarrassed. Well, first of all, I didn't know if the squat was still going to be there. I had no idea if I was going to find anything there. Let alone this derelict kind of squatty, scummy street from because the dancer never seen me as this guy living in this chauffeur-driven car and fancy hotels and being flash on stage and the bam, 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 and the hoot smile. It's like the humble side of me. So they actually took us back, and I was relieved. I was driving down to Queensbridge Road, and God, it's still there. The house is still there. I've got a key. Is anyone still in here? And they were. They sort of like, "Are you sure this is your house? Are you sure this is where you live?" This is it, folks. So I got back in, and when I came back, New Circus was getting bigger than ever. And our chaos were just around the corner. Our chaos who really publicized, took it to the mainstream. Cirque du Soleil took it to the mainstream as well, but they kind of stayed. They were more of a cleaner version, and they're still around. Our chaos are really like what we were in Spain.
Mm.
Maybe even they'd taken that to extremes and just caricatured it and brought in more heavy metal and chainsaws and things which we didn't have. But so I came back from Pakistan, and I was suddenly, wow, new circus. It's caught up. The scene's caught up with what I was doing 3 years ago. So I'm gonna have to have a mind change again. And I was going to the agent who sent me to Karachi, saying, "I want more. I want more of this." But he was kind of annoyed because he had budgeted he'd put the Iranian guy out there as well and the dancer. He had quite a lot of money coming off all of us when we were out there. His cut. So he'd suddenly lost a lot of money, and he was a bit annoyed about it. So he wasn't really interested in this stuff. So unfortunately, I didn't get out there again. And I think when I was there as well, I did have a plan. My plan was going to be, I'm halfway around the world. Rather than they're trying to send me home, I want a ticket to Australia, which is about the same distance. I said, so it cost them the same. But in the end, because of this Khomeini stuff, they just wanted to get us out. There's no time to muck about. Things you think that sounds easy in England, when you're actually out in a place like that, you just go with what they say. Another thing in Karachi at that time, you could hire a Kalashnikov at adverts on shops, hire it by the hour, hire a Kalashnikov by the hour.
Wow.
And I just think, we should get a picture of one. And I was advised not to by somebody, the stagehands who told us about this and showed us where they were. And I said, I'll just hire one just to hold one. They said, don't, anything like that. Anything you think is like laughing about, it's not a laughing matter. These things aren't laughing matters, and you could have that turned against you, that could be used against you, and you're saying you'd be in jail as a terrorist or something. You've got this picture. And so you think, you're right. And they're also saying you went to the north of Pakistan, northwest, the frontier land. So if you get to Lahore, or Islamabad, you can go across these front, and that's where you see the rocket launch. You see a market in these small towns. It's got rocket launchers, grenades, machine guns, anti-tank missiles, all lined up like as if the normal market you have onions and potatoes and clothing, and you've got all this hardware, military hardware. And I said, fantastic, I've got to go and see this stuff. This is opium and heroin just piled up on tables. I've got to see this. And again, don't go there, you can be framed at the airport. You have some heroin's dumped in your bag, and it'll be like, oh yeah, but you went to the North Frontier. You bought this at the North Frontier. I've got witnesses. So you again, you say don't muck about this stuff. Which is
that's a sort of sobering thought, really.
Yeah, you just think, this would be a laugh. And you think, actually, it's not a laugh.
No, well, again, that's the Western decadence part, I suppose, isn't it? Really,
it was, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So
in all my decadence, people die.
yeah, very good, very good.
Yeah.
We haven't touched much on your emotions during a lot of these journeys. I'm thinking at this point, was it a bit of a low coming back to the UK, given that you'd been envisaging all this other stuff?
Yeah, it was a low, because again, it was a bit of a low, but I came back and I was straight into the performing again, straight to, I phoned around all the agents who I'm back, and here's some gigs.
Right.
So again, we're talking about landlines and things these days. And so I was quickly into gigs, and I said the fact that the new circus was bubbling up, and I think Circus Space, I came back, and Circus Space, which was almost an headquarters of the new circus. So it's an idea that had been bubbling away for about a year, that everyone was performing or rehearsing and everything in small church halls here or little places here and there. It was like, why don't we have our own place? Why don't we get our own place where we can all rehearse them together in one place and bring it all together, make it the main HQ, and then also start selling acts from that as ourselves rather than going through the agents. And when I came back, and that's gone on a pace, and that finished up in Caledonian Road. So I was plunged straight into that, really. I was going up there, helping build it, helping set that up, which was, again, could be just displacement. But again, saying that the emotions going on in all this time is amazing and ridiculous with what's going on. To say there's the small circus going around Britain, the Pakistan, the Covent Garden, Lady Di, all the things I was seeing on the corporate entertainment world. But it's too much. As you could dwell on each one of those, you could dwell on them. I think this is how I felt. This is what changed me. But really, there's a general feeling this is the right path, if you like. This is all happening for a purpose. So there's always that idea. Coming back from Pakistan, there was a purpose. It was circus base was the reason I was back, and we got that
This
set up.
is stuff we can talk more about in the concluding one, which is the interview about this, I suppose, rather than just the actual story itself. But that's really fascinating. So yeah, you throw
Well,
yourself back into all the circus stuff.
yeah, so I finished off this one 1990. I finished performing at the Royal Albert Hall at a big Christmas show, which was filmed and shown in 92 countries. And I was a goose on a unicycle, a big giant 8-foot goose costume with my head sticking out in the middle of it. And this came out of Circus Space, so you can say this is the culmination almost of this world. Because they did the 12 Days of Christmas, so I was a goose laying.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
We didn't actually have to physically lay, but we had to unicycle. I remember, so all these 5 geese on these unicycles, we cycled around in these costumes. And I remember this girl Katie, who I did start doing a show with in 1997, but at that point, she was one of the 5 geese, and she said, "I can only turn in one direction. Yeah, I can only cycle in I can only do a circle in one way. I can't go the other, because it's my worst way." I had planned to go the other way.
Right, yeah.
Things, yeah, the technical problems we have with these. So I managed every time I was stuck with this thing. But I remember that one. There's the story that Paul Daniels was on that show, and he was did a kind of little thing in the middle of it.
Did you like him?
I liked him a lot more after that, because he used to come and hang out with us. We used to gather in the Royal Albert Hall central area almost all day, and because it's so far to go to any dressing room, you couldn't get someone call back. We want the geese. We want the geese. Oh Christ! I couldn't find my way around the place.
Mm.
You go into the underground where the dressing rooms are. It's like a secondary circles, and there's no signposts. So if you're in the wrong bit, you could be miles. Where you could just cut across underground, and if you missed the wrong door, you could walk another halfway around. Anyway, so we all just used to hang out inside, and Paul Daniels used to come over with all us circus people. It wasn't just us on the unicycles. There was jugglers and balancers and all sorts of people were part of the 12 days. And he'd come over and hang out with us, because he felt he was part of us, not part of the showbiz people.
Really?
The singers
That's
and the actors. And the people you think he'd be more pally with. He's always talking about he'd talk about his old days juggling, and I think we did. Oh, I remember I just jugged on this show, and we did this, and back in the 50s we did this, and
I was trying to set you up to say not a lot, but yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny these things. And Bonnie, one's got to go with the red hair, not Bonnie Tyler.
Langford.
Bonnie Langford. I've no time for her after this.
Right.
Because she kept not coming in for the rehearsals, and there's a whole balancing thing where people had to balance all together, big mass balance, and she's meant to be there. And part of this balance, this poor girl does a handstand, and she keeps going backwards, and Bonnie Langford's supposed to catch her leg. And it's like, ta-ra, they finish this great big pattern. Because she's never there, because Bonnie she just had a stand in to do her bit. So come the night, it's filmed live. Come the night, this poor girl does this handstand. Bonnie Langford's no idea she's going to crash onto her. She's never rehearsed it. She couldn't be bothered, so she just came, and then this one crashed onto her. Things I remember. So for her, then I remember Susie Quattro was on it. This girl, Katie again. Katie said she was in the toilets, women's toilets, and she had this person croaking and whining, singing out of tune while she was in the cubicle. She came out, and it was Susie Quattro.
Oh wow!
I was just I've got to go on. I can't trying to get my voice right.
That kind of era of people, the kind of pre-punk era, I think that's where I would probably be genuinely starstruck, because these were the glam rock people, and so.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, when Kate came back to see us, I was in the toilet with Susie Quattro. Yeah, you. Wow, Susie Quattro. And then she told us this story, how terrible she was singing. So that was kind of weird. Kind of, I said, it's a nice kind of summation of that world.
Yeah.
That came. I still carried on working like that, but the next year, 1991, I two major things happened over the next 3 years, and this combined. One, I started working at Windsor Safari Park. I answered an advert in the stage, so they needed an entertainer for the Easter 1991. I went up, they liked me. I did the Easter, where I lived there, lived on site. They gave me a chalet and everything, and they liked what I did, and they said, "Do you want to do the summer?" I said, "Yeah." That's like saying my whole summer booked out like that. And as I moved, I was out back and forth to the corporate world. I didn't really like me doing this. These people are booking all, lots of small gigs. In fact, I'd gone off with the Santini Brothers Circus. I'd gone to Karachi, and I was going to Windsor Safari. I was shooting myself in the foot, compared to people doing it properly. So you can't go away like this, because you lose. You come back and they've forgotten who you are. They've hired someone else in your place, and I said, "So I don't care." This is that. It's like this is a punk rocky thing of like, it doesn't matter. Live for today. Go for the excitement. So anyway, I started doing that, but at the same time, I'd heard from a lady clown, about something called independent study that the University of East London were doing, a degree course designed for people who hadn't gone to university before and didn't really want to study anything specific. They could do almost like an MA, where you create your own thesis, your own research, and you do your own research. And she'd done hers on clowning, and she'd got a degree in clowning. Well, not physically doing it, but theoretical, the history of clowning, the meaning of clowning, the culture. And I thought, you know what? Why not? And so I applied to do a thing on street entertainment. But I didn't think that was enough. And I thought, what am I interested in? What did I feel when I was going around Europe and when I've been around performing, and even going to these stately homes as a corporate event? And I thought, there's a sense of rebellion here that's not been caught. And I'd started to hear about the secret history. There's a thing, the secret history of things. And there's a secret history of rebellion, secret history of revolt, where you'd have the main narrative story. So history would be kings and queens and wars and winners. But around that, there's a real story. And often the real story is opposition to the kings and queens in the war. And that's not being told, and people are starting to discover that. And so I thought, I'll tie the two together. So I said, I put my little piece to the University of East London. I want to do research on street entertainment considered as part of the secret history of revolt. Not pretentious at all.
No, I think that's cool.
And they said, okay, write some words, write kind of how much you had to write about what you're going to do. And so at Windsor Safari Park, I'd taken my little Amstrad. You remember those little Amstrads you used to get with the green screen and the dot matrix printer? I had one of those. Had one of those by this time, and I wrote whatever many words I had to write. So I was performing. I was doing 5 shows a day on this little stage and in the on the park. Coming back, and in the evening, I was writing this little street entertainment. How I'm going to do this research, what it's about, what I expect to find. So again, it all happened together in this Easter. I wrote that, sent it in. They came back and said, "That's great. You're going to start September, or whenever September the course starts. You're in." And at the same time, Windsor Safari Park said you can do the summer. So I had by 1991 was all mapped out, and that carried on. To cut a long story short, Windsor Safari Park story. So it's another book. This went on to 1994, where every summer, Easter summer, Windsor Safari Park had me back, and I did my shows, and I was doing my courses. It was luckily it all fitted in, because I do the course would shut for the summer. I'll go off to Windsor, or shut for Easter, I'd go off to Windsor. And in 1994, I graduated with a first-class honours degree out of this thing. What they'd made me do as well, which they'd added to this course since this lady clown, Liz, had done, you had to do a proper module. I did sociology the first year, social anthropology the second year, and philosophy the third year. So you had to do like a proper module, a humanities module, which you had to pass, as well as your own thesis. So it was great. It's unbelievable. I loved sociology. absolutely loved social anthropology, and I absolutely loved philosophy. This is great. It's like not punishment. Some people treated these things as like punishment, like the Ulaanbaatar for the Chinese acrobats. You
Mm.
know, this is I love it. Love it. Give me more. Give me some more Foucault. So I came out with a first class BA with my degree, with my whole thesis written, which I thought I was going to go on and do a book, which never happened. And I had my mind opened with this philosophy and everything, philosophy, social anthropology, and sociology.
Was
And
there
then
any sense? Was there any sense of edging back into the straight world by going to university?
no, because it's such a weird degree. Yeah, and everyone on that class, all the independent study people, or I say 80% were eccentrics.
Yeah, fair play. Yeah,
By virtue of the course, by virtue of you could go in, you hadn't done proper, done your proper. There's no A levels you needed to get entry this stuff to get into.
yeah,
As people had discovered this by some means and decided that, and everyone's doing weird stuff.
right, right.
I remember one girl was doing stuff about Africa, or about an African kind of thing, and that after by the second year she was into Egypt, and she decided that Egypt was part of Africa, and Egypt was the main thing. She went to this whole thing about Egyptians and pharaohs and occult, and the whole occult
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of thing of that. What sort of she just completely went off what she was meant to do, which I thought was interesting. Because what she's
Mm.
getting into, because what she's getting into, this kind of stuff like the Crowley stuff almost. I think I can see how that kind of happens. Your mind gets drawn to this unknown and trying to fathom your way through the unknown. But then I came out of that, and what did I do? How did I make sense of all that stuff? I did speak to somebody who'd done this. They'd done a book which I was using about, but it's more about music. A bit of what I was doing about the secret history of street entertainment. They'd done it kind of the cultural significance, secret cultural of music. And I contacted him, Rogan Taylor. His name was Rogan Taylor, because he used to write about football
I knew I knew the
in
name.
papers.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I wrote to that paper, dear Rogan, are you the guy who wrote this book? And he said yes. And I said, great, I've done this similar type thing, and I want to get it published. How did you get it published? He says, don't bother. He wrote back, don't bother. He did say, I can meet up if you like. And we met up. We went to the BBC canteen. Took me to the BBC canteen. He was doing something for the BBC, obviously. And we sat there, and he says, what you want to do? He said, it cost me more in buying the paper than I ever got, to buy the paper to write the book than I ever got back in cash.
Mm. Mm.
And he said, so basically it's just it's vanity, even if it goes to a proper publisher, it's vanity publishing. It's going to cost you so much and so much time of your time.
Yeah.
And then he said, what you want to do? I said, what about, we're in the BBC, what about doing something for the BBC? It's a very visual thing I'm writing about. He says, what you want to do is get on the radio. He said, it's very difficult to get a TV show. So it's like you're playing pool and you hit all your balls in the pockets on your first shot. That's how difficult it is to get a TV show. A radio show, you just get one ball down. Go to one producer, they like it, and you're in. They're desperate for material. But again, I've heard that, and I never followed it through. But I did. There was a sound advice about don't waste your time on a book. So I didn't.
Well, yeah, having written books, I can concur. Really, what do you think? How long it takes to write a book? You're often better off just signing on financially.
Yeah. I think so. What happened after that? I saw an advert. I should say at this point, I've been moving around. The squat we lived in Queensbridge Road was taken on by Mace Housing Co-op. So we've gone from squats to I suddenly joined a housing co-op, which strangely in the previous years had the Black Sheep Housing Co-op. Before that, we had the West Hampstead Housing Co-op. Now I was back in another housing co-op, and whilst doing the degree and Windsor, I'd moved around 3 different places. By 1994, I was living at Elwood Street, right by the Arsenal Stadium, which is great. It's all part of another Mace house.
Mm.
So this at the same time as doing all this, Windsor and the degree, There's a lot of movement going on, and I became chairman of Mace. Just to cut a long story short, whilst at Elwood Street, I got interested in the runnings of it. This guy was going to stand down, so I put my name forward and was voted in as to be the new chairman. So I took that on board. And so well, I chucked that. It was just the weird things that are happening, weird things that just go on in your life, and took this responsibility. And then at the same time, I went to work on the cross-channel ferries, doing shows on ferries from Portsmouth to Le Havre, which must have been an advert and stage. And I think, as I was saying about, these agents were, not getting annoyed with me going off for ages, not being available to do work. And so it was like, well, sorry, I'm off again all this summer. I'm going to be off. I did 50 days straight on a ship. I think first day I got off was the 21st day. I just stayed on board. I was on board for 21 days. We had 3 crossings a day. And on the 21st day, I thought I'll actually get off the ship. And I got off, and it was like, as I stepped on dry land, it was like wave. It's as if I'd walked onto a ship. I was just dizzy.
So you've been sleeping on the boat as well?
Yeah. Because of the 3 crossings, you had no idea which side of the channel I was on.
Right.
Because each time you'd go, I'd do 2 out of the 3. I'd perform on 2 out of the 3 crossings. And because of that, so each night you'd be in either France or England. Well, I say that, but you're always on. You never actually stopped. The ferry never stopped overnight.
Oh, wow.
It continued. So yeah, the 6-hour crossing. So 6-hour crossing.
Yes, of course. Yeah. It's quite a distance, that Portsmouth.
Yes, it's not the short hops from Dover. This is
No.
quite a long one. And people on that it's cost more money. So you had quite a different clientele, but you got further down France.
So that's all well and good when the sea's calm. How do you do a show when it's choppy?
You go with the flow. I could unicycle. I'd do a unicycling act on it, and if it was choppy, I used to love it when I got the hang of it. If the ship was tipping, I could zoom into the audience, scream to a halt, and then cycle backwards. And so it's a long way from the Albert Hall.
Well, yeah.
Just having to go the wrong way around because of this girl. I was a free man, so I loved it. I loved it with all that stuff. And so again, if you could be juggling and the ship shuddered, you could just go with it and just do like a thing I'm doing in Karachi and just drop all the balls. I said, where's it gone?
Right.
And I had another thing. I had all these kids out spinning in place. Get this whole show, get real street stuff. I'd get 7 kids out, and they're all holding a stick up, and I spin a plate on each of their sticks. This could take 20 minutes. And again, it's a bit like the Hootsman thing, banging the balls. Nothing much is going on, but everyone's loving it.
Right. Yeah.
And then we used to have the main bar. We'd go in the main bar, and you see the adults will be, oh god, what's this? All the kids are coming. It'd be announced all the kids are coming and sitting on the floor in front of me, in front of the seats. I mean, with stuff like that, but the plates, the unicycle, all the adults will be roaring, and just get them all involved as well. The whole place will be roaring. And so the ship's wobbling around, the kids are falling over the spinning plate. We'll get there, They stop the ship, don't dock yet. We'll get this right. And they're alive.
Did you ever have? We've gone over quite a long time since we did the start of your adult life, if you like. We've gone almost 20 years here. Did you ever, as you've got older at this point, did you ever have any sense of not living for today, of settling down, or were you still just like you were when you were 18?
I think sometimes these, like the Windsor Safari Park stuff, and you're meeting people like the managers and organisers, and that's their life. And they're talking, I've been here 20 years and all this stuff. And starting to think, yeah. Occasionally, then of course, a job like the ferry comes up. Oh, I'll just do it. Why not?
Right.
Why not? I think I always thought the writing was the thing. That's always the thing that annoyed me about the performing was when you finish, there's nothing left. There's no residue. Whereas if you've written a book, or you've written a story, or you've written a song, it's been recorded. You've got something. You walk by way, and you've got heritage. With the performing, no, it's just gone. It's just thin air where you were. That way, I did like that at the beginning, and now I was thinking that's the problem. You see people live on their royalties. The there's always talk about TV shows and things. People, you know, the whole that world of the corporate entertainment, you know, people getting into TV shows, which kind of happening. Funny enough, the comedy circuit, you know, you had Rick Mail and that crowd, Ben Elton, the comic strip people. They
Yeah.
sort of shut the door on circus, because up to that point, it was quite a common route for like Paul Daniels, for example. You'd work your way into the mainstream circuit, and they'd closed it off, so only stand-up comedians were getting roles. And that's another. So bitter. There's a bitterness coming out there now. But I think whether I was on the ferries, yeah, I'd applied to write for Rough Guide to Rock. It must have been an advert somewhere. The Rough Guide series about traveling. They were branching out into music, and they'd invited people to tender, to write pieces, short pieces for them. And I wrote a piece on Mott the Hoople, was my kind of introduction, my audition piece. They came back, said, "We love it. You're on." And they started off giving a great big list, hundreds of bands. So pick the bands you want to write about, and you did. You pick all the ones: T-Rex, David Bowie, Queen. You send this list back, ball by post. They come back, oh, they've all gone. And you realise, it's not really, it's not as simple as that. Because I picked some people. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I managed to get a few bands, write about a few bands, and I was writing them at home, and then when I went on the ships, I was writing a bit like it was a safari park. When I wasn't on in the evenings, I was writing these Rough Guide to Rock pieces, I think by hand, and I was going back at home. I was typing them up. So very similar. So again, it's weird. This kind of Windsor Safari Park thing and a degree. I was down on the ship, but writing. And again, this is this idea of I'm leaving a legacy. I'm back into writing. I'm leaving a legacy and this could lead to something. What it led to, strangely enough, was a job for EMI, where they had an exhibition at Docklands celebrating 100 years of EMI, and they called it 100 Years of Music. And I applied for that one with the strength of the Rough Guide to Rock behind me. So I've just finished writing this stuff. So I'm obviously the rock historian.
Yeah.
And because what they wanted is people to go to this exhibition and show people around and talk about the exhibition, talk about music. So it wasn't just standing around being a steward. We were actually meant to be experts. And I got the job. I got a job there, and got me off the ships. And again, it's strange because now I was kind of think you could probably think I was getting away from the performing, but what you're talking now, this is probably 10 years of doing that circus stuff now, maybe more, if actually professionally doing it for about 10 years. And at this point, I was thinking, well, why didn't I take it seriously? Why didn't I think long-term plans? And anyway, EMI came up, so I started working there. So I've now gone back into music. I've gone out of the performance and back into music.
And back into London, presumably.
And also, now I'm living in London now, yeah. And with the I've moved now to St. John's Park Mansions in Archway, which I'll chuck it in just in case it becomes part of history later. Part of when I ask questions later. So I was still performing. I was doing the Music 100 stuff where we were on rotas and shifts. It wasn't 9 to 5, so you do some days and you didn't do the whole week. And you could shift around. If I got a performing job, I could take that day off and shift my rota. So it fitted in quite well. It's filled in the gaps. And what was interesting in this EMI exhibition was meeting people who were into music, different types of music than me. Music. There was lots of guys who were in bands, and they were doing this part. It's a bit like me. They were doing their gigs and doing this part time. And some were DJs. And one guy, Colin, really enthused me about Jim Super Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine.
Oh, right, yeah.
An era that I blanked, them and There's Atomic Dustbin and that whole kind of bands. I knew Pop Will Eat Itself. The Alan Moore knows the score and all that stuff. So I knew them, but I didn't really know that era. So it's quite interesting to hear someone explain to me and speak to me about that era. I'm missing part of my knowledge. And then he was saying, "Oh, Jim from Carter is now working with a band called Jim Super Stereo World. They're playing the Bull and Gate. That's, a tiny venue." So I'm coming. He said, "Do you want to come?" I said, "I'd love to see a guy who's headlined at Glastonbury and headlined at festivals, been #1, had albums at the top of the charts, now playing in a tiny venue. How's he going to fit into that venue?" And it was fantastic. And so that EMI got me back, and that got me back into following Jim, the Stereo World, and from them, a band called Art Brut, and other bands who are kind of in that little milieu of South London. Kind of, there's a whole South London music scene kind of coming up, and those two are the bands that I remember vividly. There's all other bands. There's a thing called Camdemonium. That's 1997 Camdemonium, where you paid a lump sum and you could go to 5 or 6 different venues at
Yeah, I remember.
you walk around and around. That was an eye-opener. That was real back into music. It's like Tony's back. These are great bands, and because Colin knew all these bands, he really was into all this stuff. He just is a great guide back into music, and it's still happening. And that was great. I'm really grateful for EMI for introducing me to Colin, and Colin introduced me to Jim. And this to the extent that we went to Sheffield to see Jim Super Stereo play in Sheffield, and there's about 18 people in the audience. There's this giant hall at Hallam Hall, I think it is, giant hall. They were playing, and again, this is Jim who's headlined Glastonbury and clusters like that, and he's playing. And afterwards, we went backstage because he knew we'd come up from London. He obviously knew us, and he's saying, "I'm going to knock this on the head. We can't do this. This is a disaster." And I suggested doing it without the band. I said, he said, "I can't afford to pay for a whole band." I said, "Well, why don't you just try it solo?" And I was thinking, come to my house. I'll pay you to come and solo in my house. If it's down to that, if you're desperate for money, I'll give you 25 quid to come play 5 songs in my front room. But I didn't get to that far saying it, but that was in my mind. He said, "Where do I play?" I said, "We can play in my house." Okay, and that led to him starting to do. He booked himself a couple of gigs like that solo, which we went to, and I ended up booking him. I booked him at the Hope and Anchor once a month. I called it the Jim's Day, and because luckily enough, my wife's brother was running a weekly club at the Hope and Anchor.
Okay.
And so he was happy. I said to him, "Can we take a day a month?" He says, "Yeah, fantastic." And so from EMI, I finished up booking Jim, and he loved it. Had all these bands on, all these other bands, and writers would come and read from their books. Rob Newman, I think Martin Lux came and read. I think somebody else on the third day, and then he had the other guy from Carter, Fruit Bat. He'd do his band, Abdi Jabarov. He'd come with some members of his band, a few members, and then he'd do bits, and they'd do bits together. And I think I remember going to these things, thinking, I did this.
Yeah,
amazing. It's like another planet. Where's this come from? All because, well, where's it come from? The Rough Guide, Music 100, Colin. And so I was back into music in big time. And something else happened there. That 1997, this is about 1997 this was happening, is I was booked to perform at the Essential Music Festival at Finsbury Park, which and the Essential Music Festival had big 808 State, Aphex Twin, Spiritualized, Massive Attack, Goldie. They had different tents for different types of music genres. I couldn't believe I was there for free. I could not believe I was in this venue, in this place. And what was the best? It was the Big Beat tent, the Big Beat, where we had Fatboy Slim and all that lot. They were just starting up. And the Low Fidelity All Stars were there. There's people like that. And Fatboy was doing the DJing. And that was mind blowing. That was almost like back to punk. that tent was the one that everything I was hearing in it was absolutely sensational. So it's just, I was just thankful to be alive on this. I was just thankful everything I've done in my life, like you're saying, 20 years, 20 years at the coalface, at the countercultural coalface has led to again. You could say, where was it? The music was Royal Albert Hall. Was it seeing Jim play at the Hope and Anchor? Was it essential? And so much I think it's essential because I still started going to see Jim. I followed Jim around and Art Brut. So I loved Art Brut. I didn't. The EMI exhibition stopped. I didn't write again. I think it's The Rough Guide to Rock. We wrote for the second edition. They're updating it and said, "Do you want to update your entries?" And they gave us other bits to write. But I wasn't following that. I wasn't following that route. What happened is I then got an Arts Council grant. And how far are we into the hour?
How far are we into the hour? We're over the hour.
Oh man.
Go on, keep going. So.
Okay, we'll try and push on. Well over.
Well, we started 15:06. It's now 16:15. So yeah.
Okay.
Hour and 10.
So we're going to have to believe the spirit is driving me forwards on all these things.
No, fair enough. Yeah.
1998. I should say at this point, I hadn't written it down here, but at this point, there's another street performer and corporate performer who lived very close to me. We got on very well. We wrote a script, a TV script. We both were very good about writing. We discussed writing. And we wrote a script called The Wellies about a football team called the Wellington FC, the Wellies. And it's mainly about the chairman the chairman of the supporters club who had a shed in the car park, and there's something about being this shed. So connected to the club, but not connected to the club. A little bit like Windy Miller in Camberwick Green. He's slightly outside the workings of it, but he's kind of involved. A hero of mine, by the way, Windy.
Well, and a name you used, isn't it?
I did, in fact, yes, of course, in homage to the great man.
Yeah.
We wrote the script, and it was kind of comedy drama, and we sent it out. We sent it out to all the people who published, any comedy show on the TV produced by so and so. And we wrote sent the script to all these people. I did about 20 different scripts, and it was rejected by all of them, but quite nicely. Some of them were quite nice about it. And so, how did they read it so quick? Because there's something we got letters back, all physical post again. We got a letter back, and breaking it down. Well, this time this doesn't fit, and this is not funny enough, and this doesn't really work. But I think most have said, don't send it back. Don't edit it and send it back to us. It's rejected. Send something new. And what we decided to do instead, we applied for an Arts Council grant to do a millennial. I think it was about 1990, end of 88, 99. They're advertising things for the millennium. And we applied to do something in Finsbury Park, because we're living very close to Finsbury Park, about the day an elephant escaped from a circus and rampaged through Finsbury Park. So we were going to celebrate Finsbury Park's history through the story of this elephant. Sounds a bit like my street story. A true story, yeah. So we sent this to the Arts Council, and they said, great, go ahead. And again, to cut a long story short, we did. We spent a lot of time. We used the money. We hired people, got props, wrote the script, I should say as well. I didn't say after the Wellies, we wrote, so let's not write a TV thing. Let's write something that we can perform ourselves.
Right.
Because the thing with one of the Wellies is once we've done it and it's rejected, what can you do with it? Once we thought, well, if we write a script for ourselves, we can perform it. And then if you like it, we can perform it again and again. So we did, and we performed it in Finsbury Park as part of a big millennial celebration. And I got my picture on the front page of the local paper with Warren Mitchell. Alf Garnett. He came along. He came to watch the show.
Oh wow!
He came and sat in the show. And there's a picture of two of them. Both got. I was wearing a top hat in the show, and he got a top hat for someone else, and two of us dubbed on top hats. It's like Top Men. The headline is Top Men.
Fantastic!
What unbelievable! And it was a cracking show, but we didn't do it again. The idea was thought, well, great, we never got this show done, and we had some I had one guy who was a professional actor who carried the whole thing.
Mm.
The rest of us are just mucking around him. But the rest of us were all kind of street performers, so we could work a crowd, but we couldn't remember our lines.
Are you doing TV extra work by this point?
This is going to come in now about this point about coming off the ferries. That came in. Yeah, one of the agents was saying, "Oh, well, I worked for somebody who said, why don't you do TV? Well, I'm going to go and do this thing for the bill next tomorrow." Oh, how did you get that? Oh, speak to this guy. So at this point, I started working. Yeah, I went to the agency Ray Knight, and they said, "Oh, great! Look at you, 6 foot tall man. Loads of jobs for you." But they said you're too old. Why didn't you come to us 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Because they just saw you be a soldier, and every soldier drama or comedy there would be, you would be in it.
Right.
They said, "Now you've got to be a desk man with the grey hair. You've got to be a desk man." I said, "Fine." Yeah, so yeah, behind the I think when this came in there about 80, yeah. So behind all this performing and the Arts Council and the Rough Guide to Rock and the gym thing, I was going off in the mornings to be in the bill. After these things, I'd go down to Merton. Often you go down to Merton where the HQ was, get into a minibus, be driven off somewhere, and sit in the minibus all day, and maybe used for about 20 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 hours. You never know what you're going to be doing.
Mm.
And one day I'd be sitting there, some days do nothing at all. I mean, one street performer told me this story about this when he were at an event. He said he'd performed all day, he'd done an event all day. He was doing a radio show, as we do. He's doing a radio show, in late night radio show for his local radio station. Finished that at 3 o'clock. Had gone to the HQ to get into a bus to go, taken off to be an extra. Got to the room where the extras go. He said he just fell. He was just asleep. He fell asleep, and the next thing he knew was someone waking up. So that we're finished. The day's over. He just slept the whole day in this dressing room, and no one had bothered him. He got paid for it. But I say that stuff that I remember did one show, and I got there, and it's straight on. It's like, quick, we need you. And rushed. Normally you get there and you have your coffee, you're not used for 3 hours. It's like, quick, get over there, go over there. And I was on this thing, we're gonna ring that doorbell, walk up that street, ring that. What the fuck is this? Ring this doorbell and back off. And I say normally that'd be it, you'd be done. They don't want to see the same guy in every scene. So if you used early, you think, I'm done for the day.
Mm.
Next thing was like, trying to put this mask on. Hey, can I have that guy, oh, you, me? Yeah, come on, put this mask on. Oh fuck. And I had to push a hospital bed down this corridor, run down this bed, turn a corner, sweep in, and there's this chaos. There's like person dying on this bed. There's a guy there's no one actually on the bed when I'm doing it, but in front of it is a guy, the cameraman, running backwards. In fact, and I'm slamming this thing down. Oh, fuck's sake, man. Take, retake. I can't do. How many times are you doing this? Then there's like, finish that. There's like, next you, like, in the operating room. We need you in the operating room. So that was the whole day. No, these other people were sitting around doing nothing, sleeping. I've done the work of three men. But so I've got another one. Were you involved in one of these though? The other side of these, I did a Bill film where I took George Burge's Story of Crass with me.
Oh, right.
And I read the whole. I sat on this bus and I read that it wasn't used at all day. I read the whole book. But the whole history of Crass, just about the whole book of it, on that book. Then they called me out in the evening. They called me up, like, we need these people up, and I had to go and do line dancing. They gave me a hat, a cowboy hat, and everything. So I just finished this whole history of anarcho-punk and Crass and importance, and suddenly I had to go do
And your line dance, brilliant. Do you have any tapes of that stuff, or do you just let it go?
And there's no way to record it really. There's no way.
Right.
You never know when it's on. You never know what series you're done. At that point, they don't tell you nothing. They tell you nothing.
Okay.
You do it, then you've no idea what episode that's going to be in, let alone where it's going to be shown or when it's going to be shown.
Yeah. Are we jumping too far ahead if we get to doing the puppy website?
Yeah.
Okay, go on then.
I've got a couple more of these.
Yeah.
Couple more of these to go. Okay. The big one, of course, is you're talking about having a record of this. So I did the film Mrs. Henderson Presents, where I was actually billed. I'm actually not an extra. I'm actually moved from the back rows. I'm actually now on the credits.
Okay.
I have a character. I'm a juggler, typecast juggler in a big show, the Mrs. Henderson Presents.
Oh, I've seen this on YouTube, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where I've taken my clip. And
Right.
I've put it on YouTube, and they've said, "Well, we'll keep it up. You're not meant to do it, but we'll keep it up." Was I actually had lines. Part of the script, I had lines. I'm working with Judi Dench. I had a whole repartee with Judi Dench
Wow.
about knives, because I'm juggling knives, and she talks about her knives in her kitchen drawer and things like that. There's a whole that was all cut.
Yeah.
But because Will Young was a kind of Will Young starring role, it's going to be his role to catapult him into fame. And Bob Hoskins was there. Bob Hoskins was kind of holding everything together when it's all falling apart. Everyone's sitting around getting pissed off. And Bob was kind of the man who's carried the team. Funny with Judy, she hurt herself, and we got this message: so we've cancelled these 5 days. Do you mind if we cancel these and reassign them, because there were days with Judi Dench in? And I was like, fine. And I didn't find out later that we got paid twice. They paid us for the days we didn't do and the days we did do. I thought, Judy, you can hurt yourself anytime you like, dear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I took interesting, because Barry Humphrey died.
Yes, today. Yeah.
One day in the filming, I was in the dressing room, the makeup room, it was me and Judy, and she had said to me, my dear Judy, and she said, I've just come off Michael Parkinson. I've just done Michael Parkinson last night. This is Michael Parkinson. I'm thinking it's a talk show. And she said Barry Humphries was on. Said I couldn't get a word in. Barry Humphries was on. And he just talked away, and it was so funny. And I remember after watching that, and I watched that late, when it actually came on TV, and I watched that. Wow, I was actually there the day after she did this. It's exactly as she said. Amazing. I've got one more story from this stuff to go, which I think is worth chucking in.
Yeah, go.
Oh man, so I'm getting something excitable now, Jerry. About you take me back, and funny enough, I'm not that excited about the Windsor Safari Park, the degree, the Arts Council. Suddenly, I've got anecdotes to tell you now. Maybe because
well, I wouldn't want to deny you. Go on.
Maybe because these ones people know who they are. I can tell you an anecdote about
Well,
somebody.
yeah.
This guy in that degree course. Well, what a laugh. Never mind. This one, we had to go and do a TV. All I had was be at this small cinema in the West End at 10 o'clock in the morning. I think it was a Sunday morning, and no instructions about what was going to happen. Just be there. Got there, and these guys were stomping around in Nazi stormtrooper outfits, the old tin hats on. They were bossing everyone around. What the hell's this about? They went down, and also I thought, I hope I get one of them. Get one of those costumes. But we got in, went down, and I was Goebbels. Oh yeah, you're Tony Drayton. You're Goebbels. Here's the Goebbels, and the Goebbels. I thought that sounds pretty good. And his costume was just a tatty old raincoat.
Oh no!
Oh come on, give me a go and be a stormtrooper. Do your Goebbels, mate. Your Goebbels.
He could have been out straight out of the Dirt Wears White Socks song.
That was in my head all right from the start, and that's Night Porter, you name it, Cabaret, everything. It was all going, Tomorrow Belongs to Me, and all that. It was all going through it. The theory of what this is like a TV documentary that Goebbels, me, had created these propaganda films to promote the Nazi cause, and they were being shown not to Hitler. Hitler wasn't there, but to Hitler's people, to see whether they were acceptable to be broadcast as part of the Nazi kind of canon. That's the theory why we're all in here. And I say there's the stormtroopers. There's lots of people in shabby jackets and coats and things. All very 40s, a bit 40s Germany, well 30s, late 30s, 40s, probably late 30s, isn't it? The funny thing there with the stormtroopers were bossing everyone around. Their uniforms had gone to their head. You know, they were the same as us. They were just extras like us, but they were just everyone over there now. They say, you sit down.
Fantastic.
uh, I think I've heard the same that on Doctor Who, that the guys who are the Daleks were the
Mm.
same. They grouped together, even without out the Dalek costume. They wear these black leotards to fit into the Dalek. They'd all gather in the canteens and that, and they'd look down on everyone else, and they'd just clique themselves together.
Well,
With the
the Daleks were
Daleks.
based on the Nazis, weren't they?
Yeah,
So
yeah. So it's all very, very, very close. What's going on here?
yeah.
And we went in the cinema. We all sat there, and on the screen, he said, "Okay, now we're going to show you the first one of Gilbert's films," and there's nothing on the screen. And the director's going, "Everyone, look at the screen. Look at the screen." Cut. This is right. No, you're not looking at the screen. There's nothing there. And I said, "Well, I know what." So he went off, and he found, I think they were showing Chicken Run later in the day, and so he put Chicken Run on. He said, "Right, let's watch it without the sound." They put Chicken Run on. So we're all sitting there. You know Chicken Run, the film.
Wallace and Gromit type.
Wallace and Gromit Chicken Run, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
This comedy, sort of comedy film about chickens. And so with these stormtroopers all standing around, I'm Goebbels, we're all sitting in the cinema watching Chicken Run. Well, it's about 11 o'clock Sunday morning.
Yeah.
You
Very
think,
surreal.
you tell the kids of today, they wouldn't believe it. But and there's a second part to the story. That was great enough. Like, that was fantastic enough for that day. And then we went to another location. There's some problem. The people filming it said, "Look, we've run out of money, but we've got a second shoot. We've got another location to film today. We can't pay you to go to it, but we really appreciate if you go, especially you, Mr. Goebbels. You're going nowhere."
Will pay. Yeah.
They said, it's filmed in a bunker. It's going to be Hitler's bunker. This is going to be last days of Hitler's bunker. And we're going to use one of Winston Churchill's real bunkers. I'm in. I want to see, just to see the bunker. And so a few of us, 10, 20, 10 of us actually said, we'll do it for free. We'll work. The other rest would want buggered all. The stormtroopers gone out the door. Gone to get Hitler in.
Well, yeah.
So we were buzzed off to Kensal Rise. We're out in Kensal Rise, and there's a little funny doorway, a small doorway in a car park, which you'd think was an electrical box or something. And you open this door, and there's a ladder goes down. Climb down this ladder, and then you're in what looks like an underground car park. And this is a church. This is one of Churchill's bunkers. And the word bunker, I always thought when people say Hitler died in his bunker, you think that's a small coal bunker.
Yeah, small place.
Yeah. These are giant. This is like, and so this is about the size of what Hitler's bunker was like. It's like a multi-story car park, underground multi-story car park. It's that sort of size, with rooms in it and carpets. And Churchill says, Churchill never came here, but he would have done if it had been invaded. England had been invaded. This is one he would have come to. If he couldn't get out of London, this is this London one. So wow, history. And that was amazing. And the third final cracking thing of this, and I've seen this on TV, but I've not seen it again. It's not on YouTube. Is the scene they filmed there is me walking down this corridor towards the camera. It's a long shot of me walking down this corridor, and they film it from behind and in front, and sometimes there's cameras either side. And all the rooms beside of me, there's chaos going on. All the people, the other actors, some are simulating sex, some are rooting through filing cabinets, some are just doing whatever they want, chaos or screaming and crying. So every room's got something going on in it. And I'm walking in my shabby old coat, walking, and I've got to express every emotion. The fall of the Reich, pleasure that got this far, my own personal grief, my own personal pleasure. There's a lot going on in my face when I'm walking down. And also, I'm not getting paid for this.
That's another emotion, isn't it?
It's got my pockets open like that. Where's the money? So an absolutely sensational shot. And as you say, it's one of the ones I wish I'd had that shot. And what a great day. What phenomenal day that was. Wearing myself out. Also in the performing world, I was still performing, so I'm gonna get to the puppy website very soon. Well, in the performing world, I did things like going to Qatar again, Doha, where I was there for about 5 days, 5 or 7 days, and the people there hired me out in different places, the Hilton Hotel or various places, and that was an eye opener. At that point, we saw the World Cup at Doha, and it was all very modern. In those days, when I went there, it was nothing. And there's the Hilton, there's a country club, maybe one or two main big highways, the Corniche around the harbour, and then nothing. And they say we're going to take you to this town. Go to that. It's not a town. It's huts around an oil refinery.
Right.
And I'll be there, and I'll be performing on this small stage to these kids, kids of the expats who are, you know, officers or whatever, working for the oil company. I think it's not a town. And you drive from there back to Doha. There's nothing, just desert. And this wasn't barely even a road, just like a sand track. Astounding. Again, how does this happen to a poor boy, poor punk rocker from Cumbernauld? There's suddenly out here treated like a king again. Absolutely, chauffeur-driven cars and 5-star meals. Well, also I did a show on a Christmas Eve show at a female prison.
Really?
London.
Wow, that's interesting.
Out of the blue. Again, wasn't really told it was going to happen. Went there, or the address probably gave it away. HMP prison. But yeah, went in there, went through all the locked doors and everything. There's about 5 of us circus performers. We did a little shows to these people. It was a shocker how many. I could talk for hours about this one. How many pushchairs there were, and kids in this jail. And they were saying this is like the remand set part. This wasn't like real lifers and stuff. They wouldn't let us into. They wouldn't let us into there. This prison itself is just for that reminding small scale. And on small scale, why are these people with kids in their Christmas? You know, it's unbelievable. And you wonder if some of these were actually born in prison.
Yeah, it makes you think, doesn't it?
Ooh. There's more to come. I'll give the funny bit first. There was an acrobat couple, male and female, and backstage after they'd done their act, the woman was kind of laughing. She said, "I was telling my boyfriend not to wear such skimpy clothing in front of all these women. It'll set them off." And she said, "I didn't realize it was me. They were looking at me. They didn't care about him."
Brilliant.
And then after us, a gospel choir came out. They'd probably assembling in the same dressing rooms as they all went. When we finished, we all went out on stage and we went out to watch them. And it's one of the most emotional things I've seen. I mean, it started with "Oh Happy Day," wash my sins away, oh happy day, and everyone came out. Every cell was empty. Everyone came and stood around the railings around each landing, or looked down onto this main atrium. They're all packed. These people, all swaying. Oh happy day, oh happy day. Unbelievable. Tears were pouring down my face watching this.
Yeah.
And it went on for about 20 minutes. You know, one song, the other songs. I think it went back to "Oh Happy Day" because it's just such a wash my sins away. You can see these people there.
It's fascinating, isn't it? As another bookend to sort of seeing the Sex Pistols or something. You see these people in a very different setting, inspiring all this emotion, I guess.
Yeah.
It's really.
But then, yeah, after all this stuff we've done, that's the performing side. We then decide to do Kill Your Pet Puppy website. There's been a MySpace has started.
I'm wondering, I don't know how you feel about this, Tony, but I'm wondering if we should start the next episode with that, because I think that could almost be part of the interview section, because we have reached a point here where
a happy day, happy ending.
Well, yeah, but also, you know, the doing stuff story has certainly got a milestone just reached there, I think, and then the puppy thing, and also all the kind of punk revival stuff that I want talk to you about. I think that could be
Yeah.
a next episode one. What do you reckon?
Sounds very sensible.
Cool. All right.
Uh,
Well, I'll stop recording now, but for the benefit of people who are just watching this one on its own, of course, I'd like to say thank you so much, Tony, for your fascinating stories. Thank you.
no problem at all.